Good evening. Tonight we're in Poltimore. We're continuing the historical capsule that we have already begun. Tonight we would like to cover the Poltimore Fair, and we have with us Myrtle Charon and Mr. Stanley Cheslock. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening
to you.
Perhaps we could start with the beginning of the fair. Can you give us a bit of its history?
It began in 1952, and the first fair was held at the Anglican Church picnic grounds, which is a half a mile north of here. And then after the following years, it was on the church property until 1978, when we purchased our own property and moved to the site we're at now.
And this property, I understand, it was made possible, the purchase of this property was made possible?
Yes, it was made possible through a couple of people that have passed away recently. Mr. and Mrs. George Last were very active and helpful in getting this property to the fair. They gave us a very good deal on the property and also financed it for us at very good rates. So they were very, very helpful in getting this fair on the road.
Wonderful. When you started here, you started with the committee in
1964.
You were on the committee?
Yes, as a director in 1964, and I left in 1998, January 1998.
So you were here, you were on this committee when you decided to move the fair to this?
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit how this whole building and the grounds were created and what helped?
Well, we started off, we bought 8 acres, and the first year we just moved the existing little buildings we had on the church property here and made a bit of a platform for a dance platform. I think it was 32 by 32, and we had a stage for the band set up beside. That was in 78, and in the spring of 79 everybody wanted us to get a building up, so I managed to get a deal from the McLaren company. They give us a very good price on some logs for building material, whatever we needed, and we got this. We organized bees to cut the wood, haul the wood to the mill, got it sawed, hauled it here. It was all done by voluntary work. We had approximately 100 people that give time on this project.
Wow.
And it was the way it got going.
Got going. And then the different events, the different, at one time you were telling me you had the truck pulls and...
Yes, we started out that time. It was, the main event, I guess, was a horse pull and a light horse show. And then it went from that to the truck pull, mud runs, grass drags, chainsaw woodsman competition, strongman competition. There was many different events that probably I haven't mentioned, but were all tried, and as we went on, some of them didn't work out and some of them were changed with time because of lack of interest in them. And the truck pull seemed to be, in the horse draw are a couple of events that seem to create a lot of interest over the years. Also the mud run, the grass drag, and it seems the young generation like noise. So. And the light horse show too, they put on a very good show, entertains a lot of the people.
A lot of people. And you have a little bit of a rodeo?
Yes.
Type of.
Light horse show puts on a rodeo too.
And the entertainment? You had
Yes, we had, usually when we started out, we just had a party at the, it started out with a party of the, I guess, the that night after the fair. It was only a one-day fair until the 25th fair, and we had a 2-day fair. I guess that was in 1977. And then we had to move because the grounds weren't large enough when we bought this property that we're on now. And we had the local entertainers here, and then we thought we had to try something different, so we tried some of the national stars, and it went over very good. The first one I think we had was Kitty Wells, and we had Fair and Young, Little Jimmy Dickens, Ronnie Prophet, the Leahy family.
We've had Gail Gavin and Ambush.
Gail Gavin and Ambush. They're Ottawa, local Ottawa entertainers. Carol
Doc.
Baker
Mm-hmm.
is another one.
Doc and Chicky Williams.
Doc and Chicky Williams from Wheeling, West Virginia. Those are some of the ones that entertained. Were very good crowd pleasers, and they were very good to the fair for drawing the crowds that we had.
Talking about the crowds, how many people would attend the fair?
I think in the highest year we had approximately 7,000 people in 2 days. That's with children and...
Adults. Pretty big.
Yeah. It has gone down in the past few years. It seems to be a lack of interest by a lot of our local people. Don't know exactly what the reason is, but there isn't the interest that there was back in '78.
And what would you attribute that to?
Well, I really don't know. It's hard to say. It's just people have lost interest. If other things got involved, maybe in other things, and I really, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I would agree.
One of the
People
things that has
busy.
helped in the past couple of years, there's a younger generation that seems to be very interested and very active, and that may be the only future for this fair to carry on. If they carry on in the future as they have in the last couple of years, it'll certainly bring things back up to where it was maybe in the past.
And the fair having become so big at one point, why is it that Poltimore didn't grow with it?
Well, I think, do you mean more houses?
Population-wise?
Well, one of the reasons for that, I think, is because the land was all zoned agriculture and there was no land available to expand in this area.
For residential areas?
For residential.
Did the municipalities participate in helping the fair to
In
grow?
the earlier years, they were very active, and it seems in the last years they haven't been as active as they were at first. I think if it wants to continue on, the municipality is going to have to get more involved and more supporting financially to make this fair carry on, because it just costs are too high of entertainment today for what you can bring in at the gate.
It would be sad to see this
Yes, it would. Probably
disappear
people
for...
have put in. It's, I think it's one of the best fairground sites that's in anywhere in the Ottawa Valley for the size of the community.
Yeah.
There's 28 acres of land that belongs to this organization here, and it's choice land for activities like this.
So how big is Poltimore by the number of people or families? Do you have an idea?
Roughly 500 people right in the village, maybe? Maybe.
So that when the fair is on, all the people who attend are from
Outside.
all of the surrounding
Yes.
area.
Yeah, we have people from, probably from as far as Renfrew and people from Smith Falls, some of the guys with horses and so on, come to the horse draws and Smith Falls.
Yeah, they would
Frantown,
follow all of the
many,
local fairs.
Yeah. The truck pullers come from, I think some of them even come from the United States to the truck pulls.
Oh yes,
runs
they
and
were
stuff.
quite popular. You even had the, at one point, the gospel hour you were talking about?
We had that.
How did that come about?
And I guess probably around 1981, 82, somewhere in that time it started. We had a band from Ottawa playing here, and Mr. Robert Sally was the head of the band, and Joe Stevens, our musicians are known quite well in the Ottawa Valley. They've entertained for years, and they suggested that we try a gospel hour on Sunday morning, and it has been going ever since, and it's been going very well. It's mostly supported by local entertainers that take part in it, and we have had good attendance in every year for this gospel hour.
That's great. That's certainly one way of getting all the, because Poltimore does have quite a number of different denominations.
Yes.
That's great. What, can you think of anything else interesting to tell us about the fair that we haven't covered?
I don't know. Have you anything else, Marty, you may put in?
Well, I think we've had a good turnout over the years. It's carried on quite well. We're hoping that with the future generation, the younger people coming up, will step in and take over and let us old fogies have some rest.
Do you find that they are beginning to, or is this what would be, that's your dream for this
many
fair?
of the ones that are helping, they're very young yet, and they seem to be very interested. Whether they stay in the community, and it depends on their jobs, their schooling, and many things that they probably will be interested in being maybe an executive, some of them as they grow older, if their jobs or whatever fits in with whatever
With keeping them here and permitting them to participate.
Yeah.
That's great. We're here at Mr. Lange's house, and Mr. Lang is going to tell us about the German experience in when they arrived in Canada and this area near Poltimore. So maybe we could start with that, Mr. Lang.
Okay. Well, I guess it was hard to get in here to start with. The only way they could get up here is by the Lever River, right? And then at High Falls they had to portage. I think the Canadian government, they gave them a barrel of pork or something like that, and I think a crosscut saw and an axe, I think, as to take care of them a little bit, you know. That's the way I understand it anyway. And then my grandfather really started farming to send them up on top of behind Paisler's there on a place where you couldn't even make a farm. So somebody told him, well, go down below, you know, where it's drowned out there right now. And that's where they started farming, and he had to build himself a house, and that's the start of it. And then he had to pull out the stumps, and usually then when you had a big family, well, it helped to pull stumps out and make land. But it certainly was hard, and I know for a fellow that was wealthy and then turn around and have nothing, it must have been really a disappointment. But
That would be approximately what year?
Well, I guess about he died in 1905, so it must have been somewhere in 1860s or 70, and that, whenever they died, that paper we had here before then. This one here, that's the one. Where do you see Carl Cheslock here? K. Where's K here? Someplace. And Carl Cheslock, yeah.
There he is.
Yeah,
1817 he was.
Yeah, that's that old fella. That's a Cheslock, though, eh?
That's his...
And my grandfather came a lot later than that. Like he was one of the first ones that came here.
Mr. Cheslock.
Yeah.
Okay.
But my grandfather, well, he was probably 20 years later or something like that. I don't really know. But
And they settled in High Falls?
High Falls, yeah, and cleaned all the lower lands up, and then they had it pretty well cleaned up. Well, then my parents come along and ground them all out. That's why they were so angry about the whole thing,
McLaren is that big, the big
company.
wood company?
Yeah, woodlawn company. And most of them had to work out, like my office, they had to work out in bush camps for, they tell me, about $12 to $13 a month,
Yeah.
That wasn't very much, and you had to be in, they tell me, that when it got dusk, just dark, was just left in the morning, and you couldn't come out until it was dark again.
That's nice.
So you earned your daily wages there. That I know. But they had to make a lot of logs in a day, or else they were fired, and they didn't even care if you got hurt. Well, you just sent home. That's all. I heard of guys breaking their back and just send them home. That's all you got out of it.
It was a rough life.
Oh, it was a rough
Very.
life. Oh, yeah, it was a rough life. And a lot of them didn't get much education either. Like they had to work up maybe at 13, 14, something like that. It was hard. It was really
They
difficult.
started working very young.
Yeah, very young.
So what would the life have been like in High Falls at that time?
I think it was pretty happy after they got established. When they had a church built, and then call the ministers from the States, and that was the hub of the community.
Mm-hmm.
There was no television, nothing like that those days. No radios, nothing, no roads. So the minister had to come a hard time to even get up here, and then finally they stayed up here when there was enough members, because like those days it was not so much a problem. Like believers those days were believers. They were not atheists. Now you've got too many things to waylay you now.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens now.
So the little community was well established after
Oh yeah, after
a while?
well, it's about 1920, 30 there, they were well established. They were a happy community.
So when would the McLaren company, when did it suggest this flooding that they wanted to do?
Well, we were drowned out already in 1930 roughly.
In
It started
1930.
before that. There was quite a few letters that the ministers those days sent to McLaren to try to stop them, but they didn't want to move out. I guess once you worked there,
The families didn't want to boom it.
No. It just sort of destroyed the whole family at the time.
Yeah, that would. Yeah.
Because after all, when you work that hard for something, there's a value there.
I guess.
And they were a close community that way. They were sort of, they got along well together,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to work hard for your living. And they helped each other too.
Everyone looked out for the other.
Yeah, that's right.
And how did they come together to go through this need to move? How did they organize that move?
You mean to move,
When the McLaren company wanted to flood?
oh, well, I guess the water kept coming up, like to see the picture, we didn't get paid yet on the paper, that was...
So it took a long time for the
they
company
didn't get
to
their money right
negotiate
away.
with
No,
you?
they didn't get their money right away. But they got it fairly fast, but they weren't too much...
They were moved before they got it?
Well, I like to show you the picture of my father had built a little shack beside the river so that he wouldn't have to place a roof over your head at least,
Mhm.
So that's
Because the main house was already
already
beginning to...
partly underwater. That place is around maybe 25, 30 feet underwater right now, where I was born in that house there.
So the families decided that eventually they would have to move anyway, so
Sure.
they got organized. Did they all move at the same time?
Pretty well.
But they
Well,
didn't
there's not
all
much
go to
in-
the same place?
Well, I think I forget now how many moved out to Stratford and Tavistock. Quite a few families. I don't know exactly how many, but quite a few families moved out there. Like
Stratford, Ontario,
Yeah.
and Tavistock, Ontario?
that's right, yeah.
So that was their choice. They went there, and others decided to stay here.
Yeah, well, some of them, like my father, he would have moved out, but my mother didn't want to move, so he was kind of thinking about going out there, but it was a better, like you'd get a lot cheaper out there than you could here.
Oh,
Well, you take like this place here, I was told about 3 or 4 years before we moved from there to here, this farm would have went for about $3,000. But then when they knew that these guys were all moving out there, that jumped up to $6,000.
Uh-huh.
That's where it
I
works.
saw you coming.
That's the way it happens, you know. That's why land was expensive, because. But there's not that many from up there. Well, the Schultzes, and then I think there's some squabbles too. Like this, some wanted to move, some didn't, and then some of them just will move, make a complete different change. And but they all did all right to move out to Tavistock and Stratford. There's no doubt about that. But it's just that you're breaking families up there that were so
Right.
close before.
Because some of the older people wanted to stay here.
Yeah,
and
that's
the younger
right, yeah.
people needed to leave in order to...
That's right. Well, my Uncle Henry, you know, my grandfather wanted, I think, $12,000, and he was supposed to build him a house. So Uncle Henry said, well, he says, I'll think about it. And his father-in-law said, well, go to Tavistock and see what's there. Don't worry about the money. He had a few dollars ahead, you know. So he got a farm with, I think, team of horses on, machinery on, and towers on it, and everything, you know, nice, neat kind of house, barn on it, for $8,000, and he got that up here anyway. So, you know.
That was here, not in Tavistock.
That's what he paid at Tavistock. Yeah, but he got a nice farm. Well, you got about 2 more months of summer, you know. It's a lot better, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, like, I always say, you know, I've been out there quite a few times, and if you go, say, we'll say a mile, you've seen it all.
Pretty flat.
Yeah, it's all farm after farm, but here, well, you go a mile and you can go 20 miles and it's always different. Eh? You've got rivers, lakes, and mountains. So I'd say
Changing all the
that
time.
part, you know, I like here better than,
It does resemble Germany, doesn't it?
Here?
A little bit.
yeah, the Schwarzwald.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what Schultz or Schnorr said, you know, if he was born somewhere close to the Schwarzwald, then he said that it was
Very similar.
much similar. That's why he moved up here. And he likes it too.
So that when the village, the people who were in High Falls,
Yeah.
when they started organizing to leave, and they were, that's where you were telling us about the cemetery.
Yeah.
They decided to, can you tell us what they decided to do with the cemetery?
Well, it was just two farms there. They each gave, say, I think half to that for that cemetery to build it up first, and then that's how come it got going, you know.
But when the flooding started, what did they do with the flood?
Oh, they raised it up. They raised it up about, I don't know how many feet. A lot of, just to be above the tombstones or above the water level, like, you know. But maybe,
So it was on the actual cemetery site, but they just raised the land in order to make sure that it was the tombstones were out of the water?
oh no,
No?
they had to raise all the land up about maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 feet in the front, maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure, but roughly that, you know. Then it sort of was like on the slope a little bit, so the top part, they're probably not that deep underwater, but the bottom like is very deep underwater.
So they decided to move the church, they decided to move the
Well, they had
cemetery?
to, the church was in the water. So they put like a float underneath, like, you know, and then when the water raised up, the church went up and way across the lake.
The whole church.
Yeah, you have a picture in Mrs. Schnorr's book.
But they managed to get it out, and it's the one that's up
That's
here
right.
on,
That's right, yeah.
I can't remember the name of the
St.
road.
Paul's.
St. Paul?
Yeah. And then they had a winch it up. The way I understood it was like a kind of a winch, and then a horse would go right around like that, and slowly the thing would, on skids, come up the hill there, well, in this case there.
Wow.
It was quite a feat, you know.
Yeah, because I've seen the church. It's not a
Not small.
It's not a small building.
No, it was a pretty good building.
And they did the same with the presbytery?
Yeah,
with the,
that's right, same thing, yeah. It worked, yeah, that part worked too bad, but church was never the same. Because you lost all your members, you know, you split it in two and then different...
They all moved in different areas.
Yeah, that's right. So it got smaller.
Were those the only two buildings that they moved?
Yeah, I think that most of them they just tore down, yeah.
They tore down and
Yeah.
kept the wood.
Well, some people would buy it, like our old house, Mendoza sure about that. But they were busy tearing it down, but they didn't even get finished, and the thing was already...
Flooded.
Yeah. Yeah, that's...
But eventually they did move the cemetery altogether.
No, never.
No?
No, they never moved.
Just the tombstone.
Well, we would have never moved them, but people are crazy. They won't leave a tombstone alone. You know, they just bust them up and they roll them over or do something.
Okay.
They broke them.
Vandalism.
So instead of leaving them there, just take them away and be done with it and put them where you seen them there. Eh?
Near the church?
Yeah.
Where the church is
Yeah, that's right.
now.
All the German writing on it. I guess you didn't read that, eh?
We read some of it, yes.
It doesn't go too good though, I guess, eh?
They're still pretty legible, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, of course, they date back to the 1800s.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it was now, we wouldn't read it. If it was German, I guess it'd be a hard time, eh?
For me, it would certainly be hard. And this is where you had your,
And this is, we had the fall fair here for many years before this was built up.
I remember when I visited, it was, the fair was here,
Yes.
near the church.
And the Bonsall store. Mr.
Bonsall store, which is
McClellan's now, and it's
today.
all changed because he kept adding to it and that. Mr. Boher, he was a butcher, and he used to drive the logs on the creek when they had the drive on the creek. He used to look after that, and he butchered and things like that. Mr. Rabb had the bank. We had a provincial bank here at that
Is
time.
this the same Mr. Rabb as the
He owned the mill, yeah.
mill?
He owned the mill, and he also had the bank.
the provincial bank?
Provincial bank, they called it. And we used to go, and we used to...
So that, I see you have, we have French names, and we have,
Oh, yes.
Bonsall is what, Irish?
Before Mr. no, I believe he was English. Before he bought it, was a Mr. Gagne, I think, owned it at that time.
So that Poltimore at that time was made up of
Mixed.
many
Same as now, mixed. And everybody
Germans
got along.
and Polish and
Polish, German,
French.
English, Scotch, Irish. Everybody got along, and they still do.
Isn't that something,
you know?
eh? That's beautiful. And this Mr. Tomiewicz?
Mr. Tonkovich, he was the blacksmith.
Oh,
This was the father here, the old Joe Tonkovich, and the son was Johnny. He had the Massey Harris dealership, and he had the Imperial Oil,
uh-huh.
the old hand
The
pumps.
old hand
the
pump.
old hand pumps there. We used to bring our horses in and take them up and get them shod, get new
Mm-hmm.
shoes. And Johnny could, he could pull your teeth if you wanted to, and cut your hair. He was handy at everything. And this is his house that he built later on. And this,
I recognize
Mr.
that name.
Pinker's he owned most of the land that the village was built on too.
Okay.
Because he had the farm, eh?
So it was part of his farm that was taken to...
built on, yes.
And then we have another school.
Another
the
Protestant school with a little outhouse in the back, and it's still here. It's right beside the old store. Old store is gone, but this is right next to my uncle's here. It's owned by Mr. Philip Cheslock now.
Okay.
And this was another dealership, International Harvester, McCormick Deering. He had dealt in
Farm equipment.
Farm equipment.
And then we have a cheese
A
factory.
cheese factory.
Is that still here?
No, it was straight across from Renault store, and it burnt
On the
down.
corner.
They took it burnt down.
What's the street? Corner of the street? This street here?
307. This is 307 comes up here. And
Okay.
this is Schmadapong goes ahead down to the La Salette.
Oui. Chemin du Pont?
Wait.
Okay.
And this is Mr. Adlor Basra. He used to draw wood, and he used to go to town for goods for the storekeepers.
Okay.
He drew all their equipment up. Now Mrs. Renault, Madame Renault, Madame Tongovich, and Madame Boisvor, they were all sisters of Mrs. Adelaar Brassard. They were the main ladies of the village. They do sewing and all this, and it was quite something, you know.
The real village life was an active village life, eh?
And this was another man,
Mason or
Mr.
Masson?
Mason. I don't know what he did really. He was retired by the time I knew him. And this was another farm where Mrs. Raven is now. It was owned by Thomas Bigelow.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually was the first hotel in Poltimore.
The first hotel.
Back in
Before the other one?
Oh yes, the other one was built only in 1940 or something like that.
Okay.
This one was on the go by Mr. Pichi, owned it.
Okay.
Mr. Masna Pichi. And it was on the go back in 1870 or something like that. And this was an Orange Hall now. It was a lodge, an association sort of. And they had that, and now it's Time Out. It's the Time Out restaurant now.
Restaurant. Yeah, we had one everywhere, the Orange Lodge,
Yeah,
eh? There was always...
Yeah, it was like the Knights of Columbus. So that's
Tell me,
about it.
Mr. Lass, what prompted you to build this village?
Well, I wanted the children, today's children, to have an idea of what it looked like back then, and I thought it'd be interesting for them, new generations.
It must have been interesting for you to build it.
It was.
A challenge?
I had to dig up a few pictures of the people that let me have, and most of it I can remember.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Last.
Okay,
That
you're
was
welcome.
very interesting.